Hi, this is Dan Sullivan, and I'd like to welcome you to our next episode of Exponential Wisdom. And here's my scout explorer of the technological world, Peter Diamandis.
Hey, Dan. Pleasure, pal. We're going to have some fun on this one. What do you want to talk about?
This one we've talked about before, but we got a tremendous amount of new input from the recent Abundance 360 conference in Beverly Hills at the end of January, and it was a knockout. It was a quantum leap, Peter, in many different aspects. Huge crowd, great speakers, the whole packaging that the Beverly Hills Hilton did for you, I thought was really terrific.
I try to outdo every year, so It's how I keep my edge going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Number 6 of 25. So
absolutely,
the curve is starting to go upwards on the performance every year. You know, the knockout for me, and you know why, was Monday afternoon, and it was the convergence that you did on longevity. I was sitting there and I said, boy, these 2 hours really transform your thinking about what's not too far down the road. The takeaway for me was not just that you're going to be stopping aging, but there's going to be a regeneration backwards so that the techniques, the processes, the capabilities that are being formed even today in the labs, wide different number of examples you brought together on stage. But it really puts the importance of your statement to people of the audience. You say, between now and when these things come out, don't die stupidly.
Yeah, it was great. We had 5 CEOs at A360, and I think it's worth recounting each of them and what they offered. For everyone listening here, my goal is that you're excited about this and that you're gaining confidence that you have a shot of not just living longer, but living longer, healthier. And there's just so much going on. So if I could, why don't I tee up each one and we'll talk about it one at a time. Mm-hmm. So Craig Venter, who's my co-founder and CEO of Human Longevity, Inc., came back and reported on the results. So we did some interesting changes. You guys know, who follow my work, that I talk about the 6 Ds, that when you digitize, you dematerialize, demonetize, and democratize products and services. So I've really been pushing the team at HLI to apply the 6 Ds to the health nucleus. And the health nucleus has been the place that you go and you digitize yourself. It used to be $25,000 for a visit and about 8 hours. We brought it down to $5,000, $4,950 for a visit and 3 hours of time. And the idea is then you go every year for the rest of your life, ideally, but every year now the price is at $2,950 for the subsequent years after you're on board of the first year. But what's going on is at the health nucleus, we are sequencing your full genome, all 3.2 billion letters of your life. We are looking at key parts of your metabolome. We are doing a full body MRI. We're imaging your body in a 3T Tesla machine at high resolution to find any kind of cancers at their earliest stage. We're imaging your brain, quantitative brain scan. We're looking at the vasculature of your body and your brain, looking for any kind of aneurysms. We're doing a coronary CT scan, looking at your calcium score, a pulmonary CT scan. And at the end of the day, 150 gigabytes of data is generated about you. And the goal is not just curiosity. Is there something going on inside your body you should know about? And can we find it at stage 0, stage 1, at the earliest stages? Mm-hmm. And then do something about it. So I'm putting my family through, and my friends and my employees through this in particular, so that they can know if something is going on, or you have a baseline, and then the longitudinal data you're getting year on year on year. So for example, when I did my coronary CT and my body MRI, I had an enlarged aortic root. The part of my aorta that comes out of the left ventricle was at the larger size of normal. And the question is there something going on there that I should worry about? But as I've gone to the health nucleus for 3 years in a row, it's identical. So that's just the way I was born. We have found cancers in about 2.5 to 3% of the people coming through. We have found aneurysms in a significant number of people. And this is stuff that's going on in your body you don't know about. So my goal is that people should do this, $3,000 in 3 hours. And then we're going to be franchising the Health Nucleus around the world. So there's one in your local city where you can go and do this. And anybody listening who's interested, if you go to healthnucleusvip.com, healthnucleusvip.com, healthnucleusvip.com. You can enter your name and email, and the team will reach out to you and get you registered. I just think it's just part of the don't die from something stupid. You don't want to have something going on in your body that you didn't know about, and all of a sudden you end up in the hospital with a stage 4 cancer, and you're like, I can't do something now. It's awful. So that's HLA, yeah.
Just as a follow-up, we jumped right on the availability of the checkup because 2 years ago we had done it as part of the original group who went through HLI. So I think we were number 2. I think we were like number 130 in the first group, but we were number 2 and going back for the complete rechecking. So what they're going to do is take all the original data that we generated 2 years ago, and now they're going to check for any anomalies, anything where there's a difference 2 years later. So we're just building in that every January after Abundance 360, we're just going to shoot down the road to San Diego, and we're going to go through the same process. So we're getting...
Smart.
Yeah, totally. And we, as you know, Peter, we do a lot of different things, Babs and I do, but this is sort of a foundation for everything else you would want to do.
Thank you, pal, and I agree. So next, I brought up 4 CEOs in the longevity space, 4 different companies in 4 different stages. The first is a CEO, Mark Allen, who runs a startup spun out of Harvard called Alevion. Full disclosure, my venture fund, Bold Capital Partners, BCP is the lead investor in this. So we've all heard about these young blood experiments. And young blood was this idea that you take the blood of a young individual, and if you transfuse an old individual with it, certain chemicals in that young blood rejuvenate the older individual. And we've seen this in animal models. The tests are going on in humans right now. This work was done at Harvard. This work was done at Stanford. It's called parabiosis, where you connect the circulatory systems of animals. And what they found was the primary chemical, the primary protein that goes down as we age, that if returned to an animal increases in rats the shininess of their fur, their mental acuity, their muscle mass, all these things. It's a protein called GDF11. So there's some other elements that are not been publicly stated yet, but Alevion is doing all the research and experiments to manufacture and be able to provide the GDF11 and other factors to individuals as a restorative chemical. So that's a cool company. It's early stages, and it will have impact over I would say within a 5-year time frame.
I had heard about it before through previous podcasts with you, Peter. And, this is the fountain of youth, literally, in a certain way. But I'll be 74 in 3 months, and I think anyone who sees me when I check in for medicals, people say, you're doing really good. And I said, yeah, but I'm doing it with 73-year-old equipment, and I'm doing the best I can. I mean, I do a lot of extraordinary, extra kind of work and take extra kinds of therapies and treatments to not make myself a prime target for death. One of my mottos is to give death no assistance, but there is the issue that things do wear out, and as you get older, the equipment gets older. And what I was so struck by, this was a promise that you get new equipment.
So that brings up the next company that's offering part of the new equipment promise. And it's actually a company that I've had the honor to be a co-founder with Dr. Bob Hariri. Bob and Craig Venter and I started HLI, Human Longevity, together. And Human Longevity was on the genomics and the data science side, the imaging side, all of that. Bob has been a pioneer in the stem cell world. And so he did that within a large pharma company called Celgene. I said, Bob, we need to spin this out and really create an entrepreneurial company that's a rock star in the cellular medicine business. And we've done that. We're officially announcing it to the world through a media onslaught on February 15th and 16th. Basically, it is meant to be the leading cutting-edge cellular medicine business. So Bob's discovery was that the placenta that manufactures a baby, right? When you think about it, the terminology I use is the placenta is the 3D printer that builds the baby. The placenta has the pluripotent stem cells that manufacture all the cellular types that create the baby. And for most of human history, 99.999% of all placentas were thrown away. Discarded. In fact, when you have a baby, you pay for it to be incinerated. Bob's research was to show that that placenta is extraordinarily rich in pluripotent stem cells and very powerful immunological cells, NK killer cells, T cells, and so forth. And so today, Cellularity's division called LifeBank actually will bank your children's placentas. And if anybody's listening to this, if you're pregnant or plan to be pregnant or know someone who is pregnant, please, I think it's a moral and ethical obligation for that child's placenta, not just the umbilical cord blood, which is only hemopoietic stem cells, the stem cells that can turn into red cells, white cells, platelets, and so forth. But in fact, you want to save the placental stem cells, which is all of the pluripotent stem cells from which eventually that child could regrow their heart, liver, lung, kidney, could be returned to that child for longevity treatments. So Cellularity is an incredible company that is pioneering all of the stem cell work. It is operational in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 ready clinical trials in the United States, using those stem cells for reducing inflammation, for treating diseases like Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis and diabetic foot ulcers and all kinds of things. Anyway, the company has raised hundreds of millions of dollars and is launching above the line of super credibility. So to close out on this, and we're going to go a much deeper dive into stem cells in A360 2019. And of course, as soon as the services are available, Dan, I'll make them available to you and Babs instantly. Mm-hmm. And I'll make it available to myself and my family and my mom and everybody. So at the end of the day, it's the idea of these stem cells are going to be stem cells that are genetically sequenced, are the best stem cells available, and are provided to you to help you, as Bob says, rejuvenate your regenerative engine of your body, right?
Yeah.
My 6-year-olds have thousands of times more stem cells coursing through their body than I do. So as we age, our stem cell populations decline, which means we can't build muscle as fast, we can't repair ourselves as fast, we can't reduce inflammation as fast, but we're going to be able to rejuvenate or return those stem cells to us. So Cellularity is the second company in this longevity panoply. Yeah.
The thing that really pleased me, because the time extension, that was being visualized by the 4 panelists, it did stretch as far out as 10 years, but you had this one, and I think everybody in the audience was really pleased that between the time of this Abundance 360 and next Abundance 360, that would start to become available, and that's always terrific for ADD entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and the notion is that the future spin-outs of this will be you're getting stem cell intravenous dosages once or twice a year, and those stem cells will be able to rejuvenate you. And in the animal models today, that's adding 30 to 40%. And interestingly enough, it turns out that placental stem cells, if you receive them intravenous, there's no immunorejection that takes place. People ask, why is that? Mm-hmm. And so I'll give you a very simple analogy that if you have a mother carrying a baby, in normal pregnancy, that baby is 50% related to the mother, but the mother doesn't reject that baby and the baby doesn't reject the mother. But think about a surrogate pregnancy where it's a donor egg and the mother, the carrying mother, is not related to the baby at all. And the surrogate mother doesn't reject the baby and the baby doesn't reject the mother because those placental cells have not identified the externally facing proteins yet that identify self yet. They haven't gone through the thymus. And so placental stem cells are nature's natural allograft. There's no immunological response to them, so they're safe to give. And that's going to be a lot of the basis of where cellularity's power can go. Yeah.
One point, Peter, and this is just a little side issue, but it was just a throwaway factoid, about this discussion when it was being discussed at Abundance 360, but the health of mothers during the time when they're pregnant, when they actually have the placenta inside.
Yeah, so it turns out if a mother has an autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis as an example, if they become pregnant, they go into remission. I believe this applies to cancers as well, but definitely for autoimmune disease. And it turns out that the belief is that pregnancy is causing, you have these placental cells actually flowing through the mother's circulatory system, and that is causing a suppression of the autoimmune disease. Fascinating point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The third company that we had on stage during this segment was a guy named Keith Leonard, and he's the CEO of Unity Biosciences. And Unity Biosciences is a company that recently backed by a number of amazing entrepreneurs, including Jeff Bezos. So Unity has done and was commercializing the research that shows that as we evolve, as we go forward as humans, our cells divide, then they stop dividing. They become what's called senescent. And a number of senescent cells undergo a transition to a point where they are causing inflammation. If you can kill those senescent cells and remove the inflammation impact they have, two things occur. One, they're no longer causing inflammation. The third is they make more room for stem cells to grow young, vibrant cells. So in animal models, again, removal of senescent cells has caused a 30% increase in lifespan. And the company Unity Biosciences has created the ability to identify and kill senescent cells. Yeah. So they're entering human trials now, and this is a 5-year horizon, if you would. Another approach, but that's a very powerful approach that I'm tracking very carefully.
The interesting thing here is that the longevity topic has been discussed from the time of the very first Abundance 360. And if you don't know what exponential growth is, all you have to do is compare 1 year's progress reports from the front lines with what was there last year, and there's been an exponential jump in progress each of the years that I've been coming to Abundance 360.
Yeah, and it's part of my pledge for my Abundance 360 members, whether you're in the room at A360 or you're part of our digital community. And just to make a pitch for the digital community, it's being an A360 member in the room is $15,000. The digital community is $1,500. And you can go to a360.digital if you want information, but it's a year-long membership. We have conversations like this. Or you can just listen to Dan and I on that podcast. Okay. Anyway, but there's a lot more in the digital community that's super exciting. It's an amazing, amazing community of people changing the world. So the next person up on stage was Osman Kibar, who's CEO of a company called Samumed. So I was really very happy that Osman agreed to come on stage because he's been very secretive about it. They're just now beginning to come out. They're a private company with a $12 billion market cap. Pretty extraordinary. And my friends in the Forbes family had made the earliest introduction because they were early investors in Samumed. And what Samumed represents is nothing short of miraculous. You can go to their website and look at what's called the WNT or Wnt pathway that they've been able to create the chemistry to regulate, which also affects stem cells. But their belief is that they have created the ability with a single injection to your knee to regrow your cartilage back to its youthful state, with a cream on your face to get rid of wrinkles. And the thing that caused a ooh in the audience was a cream for your head that will regrow your hair. And I was like...
the original color, I mean, it was spectacular because people saying yes, and we can turn stones into loaves, and we can turn things, they were describing all these miracles, and everybody's sitting there and they're taking their notes. And then the thing about regrowing your hair in its original color, it was like the second coming.
That was so funny. But, my goal with presenting these companies, and I'm tracking these companies, I'm investing in these companies, I'm advising these companies, and I will continue to find, I've got a series of meetings end of this month in Florida with longevity companies. There's another company I'm starting in this space. I want to be on the cutting edge so I can represent this back to you, Dan and Babs, and to the abundance community. Because ultimately, and this is a phrase that Joe Polish taught me, that he had heard, a man who has his health has 1,000 dreams. The man who doesn't have his health has but one. And it's so true, right? And what can I give you that's more valuable than extended healthy lifespan? So I think longevity will be one of our modules every year at Abundance 360. Why not?
There was a report that Warren Buffett had spoken at the business school at Columbia University where he graduated. And this was within the last year. And a student in the class said, "Mr. Buffett, is there anything you'd give your entire fortune for?" And he said, "How old are you?" And the student said, 21. He said, "I'd give my entire fortune for 21, knowing what I know now." It's a joke and it's funny, but just think of the potential here that Warren Buffett taking advantage of the technologies and the breakthroughs that you're talking about here, he could get 21 back knowing what he knows now, so.
I honestly think it's a multi-trillion-dollar marketplace, longevity marketplace, and it's evolving now.
Well, it brings up a real interesting point, too, that none of these things are covered by any kind of insurance plan. So when people think of healthcare, they said, well, is it covered by insurance? Well, the fact is not a single thing that you're presenting here will be covered by any insurance plan. You have to write the check. And the whole point is that everybody is benefiting today because check writers are willing just to go ahead and write the checks to further the research, to further the new capabilities that are coming out. And it's just an interesting thing that really wealthy people actually do an enormous amount of good in pushing forward the frontiers of science and technology.
Yeah. So listen, if you're listening to this stuff and interested, the first stage is participate in the health nucleus. The price has gotten down to $5,000 for the first year and $2,950 for each subsequent year. It's within most everybody's financial realm, and believe me, it's worth it. And you can go to healthnucleusvip.com to get that. And then if you're interested in tracking where the stem cell world is going, go to cellularity.com. Cellularity with the first single L, CELULARITY. And if you go to cellularity.com and sign up for Bob Hurry and I are going to be putting out a probably every 2 weeks longevity blog. We'll keep that community up to speed on when the cell treatments are available and what's possible. So anyway, that will be, I think, worth your while to go and do that as well.
I just want you to know I'm sticking with 156 for the time being.
That was the other question.
First of all, I believe that technology, the exponential growth of technology, gives me a lot of negotiating time, negotiating room as we, so I'm sticking with 156. But I should tell you that this is the first question that's asked when entrepreneurs come into Strategic Coach, and I say, write down the age at which you expect to die. Everybody's got a number. I've done this with 6,000 individuals. Everybody's got the number. And then I ask them to talk about the year before they think they're going to die, and how do you want to be physically great, mentally sharp, financially independent, quality of relationships, warm, many relationships, and your self-assessment of your life up until then. And they all think that they've led very worthwhile lives. And I says, so I repeated back to the person, the 5 characteristics, say if they think they're going to die at 78, how they describe themselves at 77. And I say, well, what do you think the chances are if you were that way at 77, you would die at 78? And they said, well, probably I wouldn't. And I said, so how long would you live beyond that? And they said, 10, 15 years. And I said, which? 10 or 15? And they say, 15 years. And whoever I do it with, I shake his hands. I said, you've been in coach now for a half hour, and I just bought you 15 years because your number just changed. And after today, you will no longer think 78, you'll think 93. And I said, that will make all the difference in the world. I've given you 15 extra years. And I said, now, I've got a further question. When do you want the extra years? At the end, or would you like to take them right now?
Interesting, right? Because I do believe that your mental mindset is one of the most important things for your longevity. And if you think, you've said this, if you're like, I'm ready to keel, well, nature's listening.
Yeah.
And they'll take you.
I have this little routine going. I said, I've watched death. I've observed death. And death doesn't like to work real hard. So when death comes around, I'm always really interested, engaged, and excited. And death looks at me and says, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. So he picks off the people. So death picks off the easy ones. And I say, I don't know how competitive everybody is, but if you're really going to be competitive against your peers, wait till your 70s. They're easy pickings when you get into the 70s.
Yeah, that's funny. I'll close this conversation out with a term that Ray Kurzweil, who's been a standard part of A360 as well, talks about. He coins a phrase, longevity escape velocity. And it's the notion that you raised earlier that as time moves on, there's all these other things going on that are intercepting our lives. He says that his expectation is that within the next 10 years, we're going to reach a point at which science is extending your life for more than a year for every year that you're alive. And then it goes divergent from there. And that's an amazing, amazing thing. And that's when I say, your mission is not to die from something stupid. Put on your seatbelt, wear your helmet when you're skiing, go through the health nucleus or whatever medical checkups and make sure you don't have something going on.
Yeah. Peter, I have to tell you, I get an enormous amount of feedback from our podcast together from strategic coach clients and new people coming into coach. I have to tell you, this is everybody's favorite subject.
This should be. Why not? What's the good of making money if you don't have the time to enjoy it?
Yeah. Wonderful bringing everybody up to date. You did it in a knockout way at Abundance 360, but I think everybody's going to get enormous value about not only what you've described, but some of the resources that you're allowing them to connect with. So I just want to say something. I think Mr. and Mrs. Diamandis really raised their son to be a persuasive salesperson.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. I'm proud of my mom and dad. Anyway, I love you, and I appreciate all our times together. See you, Dan.
Thank you.